What's up, everybody? It was shit earlier, but it turned out to be pretty nice now. So we're gonna go and get some more miles on this thing, because I did confirm it. The dealer was right. But like the BMW, they reduce the engine power on this bike until you, and it's not just until it hits the mile like the Corvette. I actually will have to go in to the dealer and have them plug it into the laptop and unlock this to get full power and be able to really play, which is unfortunate, but nothing I can do other than just put some goddamn miles on it. There's John. Let's go say hi to John for a minute. What's up? It is. I'm back on it. I'm back on a Ducati. It was a year old. It was getting old. What's up? Yeah, I'm just got to get some break-in miles on this thing. So this one comes locked. They lock the power like the BMWs and my Corvette, to where until you get to that first service, you don't get full power out of it. So I got to go put some miles on the damn thing.
How far is that?
624 miles, and then they can unlock it.
They do that remotely?
No, I have to go take it in and pay them, of course.
Why did you just get tired of the MT?
I just wanted to be back on a Ducati. Impulse buy. I know.
An impulse buyer, I've never noticed that about you.
It is so unlike me.
I know, it's so unlikely. It looks nice and comfortable in the cockpit. Nice.
It is.
Decent naked bearing. You know.
Yeah. It's definitely gonna be good. It's got to get the suspension set up. Figure out it. What?
Ducati's be twin, right?
Yeah, this one's a twin. They have V4s and twins. I went to twin.
Sounds good. How many cc's?
955.
Okay. I like the way they the front end, the way they're making the front ends now on a lot of different bikes like this.
Yeah.
Kawasaki, Kawasaki makes one, the Z, I think.
Yeah. It looks mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You make it look meaner too.
Oh, I bring the meanness, clearly.
Yeah, with you on it, the bike looks like, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ride. Get some miles.
Some fun. Hey, we got this car for Baylor, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
paint it up.
Nice.
Yeah, decent car, guys. Decent fuel pile.
Shit ton better than my first car.
We had one of Savannah's friends was going to give it to Carvana for what they were asking for.
Right.
She gave it to me instead for that.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, make a good little car for her.
It is. It has been already.
She might need a booster seat to see over the steering wheel.
Short girl's good.
She's a hobbit.
She is a hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, have fun, man. Call us if you need us, man. I saw that thing where you're cleaning up the garage.
Yeah, it'll be in a couple weeks. I'll get a dumpster, but then we've got pool party next Saturday.
Next Saturday?
This coming Saturday. Don't give me no excuses. You guys already committed and said you were going.
Yeah, what time does it start? Because we got a conflict already. Casey's in town.
It sounds like they have a conflict because you committed to this a month ago.
I know.
Yeah.
What time does it start?
I don't know. Ask Donna. It's on the invite.
I'll look at it.
All right, man. We'll see you.
You be safe on this thing, Mike. Don't let it be too much for you, okay?
I will try. Later. All right, let us continue on our journey. So yeah, I love the way the handling is so far. Wonder if I can reverse the quick shifter to do GP shift. That might be nice. Now that I've only got one bike, I don't have to worry about remembering when I go back and forth between them and missing shifts or any of that stuff. So I need to do and just get some miles on this. because I want to get the suspension set up. Well, as you heard me saying there to John, we got the pool party next Saturday, so I'm not going to be able to get up and get the suspension set up till the week after. What I would like to do is see if I can get 600 miles on here and work out something with the dealership where I'll just, like, I'll do the oil change and all that shit myself. And all I got to do is roll in the morning, have them plug it into the laptop, push a button, make the sign of the cross, and unlock it. And then maybe if I just paid them 150 bucks, give them an hour labor just for 15 minutes worth of work. It'll take them longer to get to the stupid plug and fire up the laptop than it will to do the actual reset, make sure the firmware is up to date and all that. If I can get them to do that, then I could probably get up to get my suspension dialed in at the same time, which would be nice. But even in restricted power mode, I mean, it still pulls. It pulls more than Donna's Monster, but I can tell there's something not, you know. I had a Panigale 959, and apparently this only makes 2 horsepower less than the Panigale V2. So the Panigale that I had was, I think, 151 or 152 horsepower. They said at the crank. This is 153, and the Panigale V2 is 155. So there is a 2 horsepower difference between this and the Panigale. And I remember how fast that thing was, and power wheeling and all that stuff. And I can tell this is definitely held back. I would say it's enough there to be fun, but if I had to take a guess, I feel like it's probably pulling 15 to 20 horsepower. So, I mean, not massive, but it will be noticeable. So I need to just rack up 600 and something miles, get that wrench to turn on in less than 2 weeks. So I'm going to be going out after work every day, just do a quick loop. So if we put 20, 30 miles on a day, maybe I can get a bunch of miles on it next Sunday. And then during the week, as long as I can hit that mark, schedule it at the dealer, I can run over there, be there when they open, get that service done, and then jump on 400 and head straight up to GMD CompuTrack. So my suspension guru can work his magic, and at that point, we're gonna party. This thing's gonna be ready to rip. Now, someone done asked me on my channel, on my Chanel, they were like, hey, what's the, compare it. Now, I did compare it a little bit yesterday, so maybe you didn't watch the whole video. To the MT-10. The MT-10 was a faster, slightly higher revving, way more torque. Again, that was a piped and tuned and flashed versus this, which is less power to begin with, but also is still restricted. So it's hard to make an apples to apples comparison. And so the real review might have to wait for that. This feels more like a sport bike. The MT-10 is very, very fast, and it's comfortable. It's not a super aggressive seating position, but it's aggressive enough for sporty riding. Obviously, people are doing track days and tearing up on those things. You can go and do all kinds of stupid stuff on those bikes. Very, very capable. But this feels more like a sport bike, even though it may make less power. So they're claiming this is 153 at the crank. In stock form, they're claiming 165 at the crank for the Yamaha. But I think, well, you know what? In stock to stock, if this was unlocked, it should be making about 130, 131, somewhere right there at the wheel, right around the 130 mark. And I believe that the MT-10s in stock form are only around 138 or 140. They're limited up top, and that's why you got to get the ECU flash, because the throttle body shut down to 70% after 10,000 or something like that. So stock to stock, the The MT-10 is definitely more torque, lower down, more muscle. It is a good bit heavier. So, not massively, and I think the difference isn't as much as I originally thought. It might only be around 20 to 22 pounds difference. I'm going to double check, and I'll put that in the notes, in the description. It's a little bit chilly today, 59 degrees. It was 80 yesterday. I probably should have worn a warmer jacket. The brakes on this, noticeably stronger. Not that the brakes were bad or weren't strong. They'll certainly get the job done. But like, I upgraded to EBC HH pads to give them just a little more bite. But as good as those are, those don't. The MT-10 doesn't come with braided lines. It doesn't come with Brembo. I think it had a Brembo Master cylinder. I think. I'll have to go look at other videos. But I know the calipers were not, and they didn't have braided lines. So this, between having the Brembo M50s and braided lines and a Brembo Radial Master cylinder, although it's not the RCS 19 that Donna had on her, that I had on my Street Triple RS, it's a good Brembo Master cylinder. But I will say the initial bite and the strength on these is a noticeable improvement over the MT-10. The wind protection, stock for stock, I feel like this is slightly better, even though you'd look at them and go, well, they got to be about the same. There's something about this where rolling along, and even yesterday when I was on the interstate, I was mindful of the wind, and it was a fairly steady pressure. I wasn't protected at all. But it wasn't turbulent, bouncing my helmet all over the place. It was very smooth and uniform over my chest up to my head. It didn't dump it all into my head. And that oftentimes is what happens when you put windscreens on or things like that, is you take the wind off your chest, but you funnel it all into your face. And so it's, now in the wintertime, I may be like, oh, I wouldn't mind that because it would keep that cold wind off my chest. Whereas here, you know, it'll probably be nicer in the summertime because it will help keep me cooler because I have more wind on me instead of it just being on my helmet. What's up, Corvette guy? So, but honestly, like the wind deflection, it's not deflecting it, but it's not turbulent, and it's just evenly distributed across my arms, my chest, my stomach, my head. And my helmet is not getting battered around, even yesterday at 80, 85 miles an hour. What'll it be like on the track at a $140? I don't know. Probably not a lot of fun. But no naked bike is fun. You can do it. I wouldn't call it an enjoyable experience. Let's see, what else? I went in and set up my sport mode. Well, let me get into settings later. As far as suspension goes, you know, the Yamaha, I had to put a couple grand into it. Between the Nitron shock, the Racetech springs, new fork oil, having it all dialed in and set up. It handled, for a bigger, taller, heavier bike, very, very well. It was a very good handling bike. It was very planted. I would say it felt a little bit more plush and a little bit more stable than this. Again, stock suspension, I haven't touched anything. So by the time Kent is done getting the sag set up and then getting the clickers dialed in, this may improve. It might get a little better. It might be, oh wow, this is much better. I don't know. I don't know much about it. We'll have to see what Kent thinks. My hope is that I won't have to put any money into it other than setup. When I sit on it, it doesn't sag terribly much, and it doesn't have much you know, the damping seems pretty damn good. It's a little stiff, but I don't know, it feels good. So right now, it's hard to tell. I haven't really been able to wail on this. I would say that the initial impressions, the MT-10 felt a little bit more stable and a little bit more compliant. But this feels more agile and sharp. It's not twitchy, but this does want to just flick into turns and transitions left to right, having the center of gravity so much lower. It does feel like it's probably going to be a better handling bike once the suspension's clicked in. They're like, wheelie. I'm like, I'm not wheeling. This fucking police station right there. Besides also, you know, not being at full power. But, so I'm going to give the brakes to this, for sure, no doubt. I'm going to give the verdict is still out on the suspension. If we're going stock to stock, this. I can already tell this feels better. The MT-10, for a guy my size, to really get out and play on it, like, we had to put in like all the preload, couldn't quite get it where it needed to be. Out of the box, I, again, wasn't railing on it yesterday, but I was up playing in the mountains and I didn't feel it doing anything weird. Normally, I get on a stock bike and I'm like, yeah, I can ride this. Like if I get on Donna's bike, I can ride it, but I wouldn't push it at all. The suspension would be way too wallowy and not confidence inspiring. So I would say stock to stock, this would get the win over a stock MT-10, not the SP. My upgraded MT-10 maybe has the edge over this, but the verdict is kind of out because I gotta get this settled, set up and broken in a little bit, and then get to be able to go play with it to really see how it feels. So we'll say one win, solid win on brakes for the Ducati. One current marginal barely win for the Yamaha in its upgraded state, and that's tentatively because that could change once we dial this in. But we'll give the nod to my MT-10 the way I had it set up at this time. Power, MT-10 all day. All day. The MT-10 it's just a bigger, well, I mean, it's not that many more cc's, but it's got twice as many cylinders. It's made for torque. It's an R1 derived cross-plane crank that sounds like a V4. That is, in my opinion, one of the best motors in all of motorcycling right now. When it comes to the character, the power delivery, the sound, the visceral feel, the tractability, I would put the R1 motor and the Aprilia V4. Those are my two favorite current motors. Now, the Aprilia V4 I will not own because of all the goddamn, oh, ducky, up there, because of all the damned valve issues and stuff like that. I will not own another Aprilia until they redo the platform and they work those bugs out. I just refuse to do valves once a year or twice a year and every other track day. That's absolutely insane. It's a lot of money in maintenance just to keep a motor from flying apart. It's especially annoying because that motor has been out since 2008 or 10. That is a decade and a half old design and it's still not right. So in the engine department, engine character and power and just pure performance, landslide victory to the MT-10 versus this. Now, if this was the V4 version, that would flip. The V4 stock makes 208 horsepower. It is ridiculous, or 204 horsepower. Something. It's over 200 in a naked bike. It's absolutely brutal. But yeah, so that's one solid victory on brakes for this, one solid victory on the motor and performance and character. This motor has some character, and as much as I like Ducati L Twins, this motor does not have the character of, let's say, like the 1098 or the 1198 had. But it's a really good motor. But Yamaha gets a win. So now it's Yamaha has solid win, Ducati has a solid win, and the Yamaha currently has a tentative win on upgraded suspension. With my Nitron and Race Tech stuff, man, maybe then it wins. But stock, this would beat it, I think. Now here's something that's completely subjective. The looks and the attitude, the aesthetic. Ducati, hands down. I've been saying for months that I had the MT-10 and I put up with the looks because of just how brilliant it was, because of how it rode. You said, well, if it's rode so well, why'd you get another one? This is the story of my life. This is the 35th motorcycle I've personally owned, purchased. I've been averaging a bike and a half per year for the last 25 years. It's just my thing. This is what makes me happy. I don't have kids. I didn't have to save for college and any of that stuff. I'm not exactly a car guy, although I did go buy a nice car, but bikes are my thing. And I buy them, I play with them for a while, I tweak them, I make some content on them, and then I'll often get bored and go get something else. I've never found the bike that I'm like, and I always say, hey, maybe this is the bike I could keep for a while, and then this is a Dave thing. There is nothing wrong with the MT-10. And I even told the sales guy yesterday, as we're sitting there going through everything, and talking to Nick about it while he was there waiting on me. And I'm like, there's no rational or logical reason whatsoever for me to trade in that bike for this bike. In some ways, it's a downgrade. When it comes to sheer performance, it is a downgrade. That is absolutely a faster bike in a straight line. Ooh, bunch of buzzards. Now, on a racetrack, when this thing's at full power, I don't know. I think that the MT-10 would certainly pull it on the straight. But if we were on a smaller track like Tally, I don't know. The MT-10 might still come out ahead. This is lighter, I think, and with the better brakes, I think you can brake a little later. Again, assuming you have the skill. If it's me on each bike, then there probably isn't a bit of difference, because what's going to hold the bike back is going to be the fat lump that's sitting on it, piloting it, and that's me. It won't be a deficit of the bike. But, you know, in some ways, this is a downgrade. Downgrade in power and performance. It's going to be a little bit more maintenance intensive. Not a lot. I mean, these things are pretty reliable. These Super Quattro motors have been out for a while, and they're good. They're solid. And then you've got, you know, the valve interval is not as good as the 26,000 mile. And it's going to cost twice as much, but I only have to get it done every 15,000 miles. I've only owned one bike that made it that many miles anyway. So I'm not as concerned about that. If every 2 years, let's say, I've got to go put it in the shop for a week or two and spend $1,700 to get the valves done, that's just that's going to be the biggest fly in the ointment maintenance-wise. But, you know, the subjective things, I've said for months, I don't think the Yamaha is a particularly good-looking bike. I think the R1 is. But honestly, the MT-10's kind of fugly. I've never been crazy about the looks, but it's so good to ride. You're like, when you're on it, you don't have to look at it. But I would never come out in the garage and go, yeah, look at that thing. I go, that's a fun bike. But I'd never sit there looking at it, enjoying the lines of it, enjoying it, the aesthetic, the art of it, the fact that you can take something that's very functional, but deliver it in a way that stirs senses other than 0 to 60 times, or a lap time, or a spec sheet. God damn, the way this thing just dives into turns. I may find that I'm fast. When I get the suspension dialed in full power on this, I immediately feel kind of at home on this. There's something about it that, you know, I was on the ZX14 and the MT-10. And so by comparison, the MT-10 felt like a razor compared to the ZX14. But as good as that thing was, you know, it's not a ZX6R or this. The Panigale is known for being just an amazingly, you know, capable telepathic handling package. And that's what this is. I don't think that they've changed the chassis much at all. The horsepower changed by 2. It's negligible. You'd need a dyno to tell the difference. And this thing might have shorter gearing than the Panigale. I'll have to look that up. So it should accelerate every bit as quick until you're like well up into triple digits, and then the aero, you know, the Panigale will start to slice through the wind a little better. But aesthetically, there is no comparison. The Panigale is, or anything Ducati, there isn't anything that Yamaha makes that looks like a Ducati. And Yamaha makes some good looking bikes. You know, they had some good looking cruisers, a Striker, and a couple good looking bikes in the cruiser area. And R1s and R6s, they're great looking, but it's not a Panigale. It's not an Aprilia RSV4. It's not an MV Agusta. There's something about Italian design. We all know it. Even the guys are like, oh, Ducati, I like my Suzuki. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the Suzuki. In most ways, most quantifiable ways, the Suzuki is the better bike. Most Japanese bikes are going to be better mechanically, cheaper to maintain, more reliable over the long term, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean these aren't as reliable, but they're not going to be as reliable. You know, the Japanese are the best when it comes to that stuff. But handling, yeah. What's nice about this is you still get most of the benefits of the naked sport bike. You're still somewhat upright. You're not hunched over. You're not cramped, although my legs are, they're not cramped, but they are a little higher and further back than the MT-10. Oh, and it looks 10 times better with just a bar end. This looks so much better without that stupid, this big Mickey Mouse stalks for mirrors. And I actually have a better view behind me with that one mirror down there than I had with those other ones. I had to keep dipping my head. In fact, it was probably annoying watching the video because I was having to keep doing this, looking down to see where Nick was behind me. Here I can look without barely moving my helmet. I can look out the corner of my eye and I can see that car back there. So big improvement. Don't need 2 of them. This one folds in, so if I'm in a narrow area trying to get between cars or something, I can fold that in and go. How else would I compare this to the MT-10? Well, as a touring bike, as a sport touring bike, so if you think about everyday riding and what you might want to do with the bike, this is going to make the slightly better sport bike. You're a little more pitched forward while still being comfortable. You can daily this. I mean, I'm sitting pretty much bolt upright, but when you really grab both your arms and get your arms relaxed in the right position, you are about 5-8% a little more aggressive. Your feet are about 10% back and higher, more aggressive. Just enough to attack a corner a little bit better like you would on a sport bike. It's not massive. It doesn't mean that the Yamaha's not good at those things. This is just a little bit more of a sport bike that they added some stuff to make it a little more humane and upright so your body isn't hating you. if you're doing anything other than track days, okay? The MT-10, I can put the tall windscreen. Now, I can get heated grips for this. The MT-10 had the heated grips. The MT-10 had the rings here for the OGO bags. This doesn't have it because the screws are on the inside. So I don't have a way to put a tank bag here. So I can put a tail bag on it, but really, unless I want to go magnetic and risk scratching up my tank, my options on this are a little more limited. Donna's Ducati has the rings. So it's not even all Ducatis, it's just this one doesn't have that. So if you're gonna buy a bike that you want it to be really fast and very, very sporty and the latest electronics, but you might wanna do trips and stuff like that, MT-10. The MT-10 has a little bit more relaxed, comfortable ergonomics. It's a little bit of a bigger bike. It's a little heavier, so it's a little bit more stable on the interstate when you get hit by crosswinds and stuff. It's got cruise control, which this doesn't. And you've got options with that tank system, as well as being able to mount a tail bag to the back seat. And it's just being a little bit of a bigger bike with a little more room on it because it's a little less sporty. That bike makes the definite better sporty touring. I mean, it's not a sport tourer. It's a hyper sport touring bike, you know. There's some bikes that are kind of in the middle from sport and touring. It's way more on the sport side. This basically has almost no touring, other than it being naked, so it's a little more upright. That's about the only concession you could say to, well, yes, you could ride it all day because it's a naked, upright sport bike. But you've got no wind protection. If it's raining, there's no way to keep some of the rain off you with the windscreen. You know, if you're at highway speeds, there's no ability for luggage up here. It's just, it's a sport bike that they went to some lengths to just make it a little bit more humane. It's like the Tuono. They took an RSV and they moved the foot pegs a couple millimeters and threw a bar on it. And that's what it is. This is very much like that. This is like my Streetfighter 1098. That was a super bike that they ripped off the plastics and they threw on a low Magura handbar. And it was a lot of fun, but you didn't like to go on trips on it. So this will be interesting to see, you know, when we go up to the Dragon for the weekend, you know, what's going to be like 2 hours on the highway. I don't know. I mean, for 2 hours, you could probably put up with just about anything, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to need to get the other seat. I don't know if I should just re-foam this one. Might have to play around a little bit. So where do we fall? We got brakes Ducati, aesthetics Ducati, more sporty intentions and more agility, and probably better on the racetrack for attacking corners and things like that. I'm going to give it to the Ducati. When it comes to engine character and sheer performance, MT-10 all day. No, we're comparing leader bike to midsize, but it is what it is. My comparison, because those are the two bikes I've had in this case. Overall comfort and amenities, MT-10 all day. That comfort seat, the suspension, the windscreen, the heated grips, the little bit relaxed ergos, no contest. This is comfortable enough, but the MT-10 was just, it beat it soundly. So if we add up all those points, and then suspension, it's going to be, you know, if you're talking stock bike to stock bike, this. If you're talking stock to modded, coin toss. It's going to come down to whether this suspension in stock form is sprung and can be set up for your weight. Mine couldn't, not the way I wanted it, so I had to spend money. But, you know, if you're going out of the box to out of the box, it's going to come down to, I think this would be the better. I think the Showa big piston fork is better. The shocks, maybe. I mean, this shock looks a lot nicer than the stock shock on the Yamaha. The stock on the Yamaha looks like a cheap shock. This isn't Olin's, but it's a very nice shop. So I think if we added that all up, it's 50% of the wins fall on the Ducati, 50% fall on the MT-10. Which is the better bike? Like anything in life, it's going to come down to what's important to you. If you want to be able to go on some trips and you don't mind adding screens and accessories, and there may be screen. I mean, I can add heated grips to this. I think I can add a taller windscreen, although I think that would just deflect the wind into my face. I'll say this steering damper is way better than the stock one. I did not like that steering damper on the Yamaha. And this one uses standard mounts, 1, 2. So I can go get any aftermarket one that just meets those length requirements and bolt it on and go with no modifications, no new brackets. That's kind of cool. You know, well, value for money. Here's the tiebreaker, I guess. If we're just doing points, 18,000 versus 14,500. So you're talking $3,500 difference. It's not crazy amount of money, but as a percentage of the MT-10, you're adding another 25%. And you can say, well, yeah, 24% or 23% more, and you don't get as much power, and it may not be as comfortable. And that's where you have to, I think, make your decision. The good news is you cannot go wrong with either of these bikes. The MT-10 is one of the best all-around street bikes on the road today. It's better than the Z900. It's better than the Street Triple RS and the MT-09s and the mid-size bikes because it's a true leader bike. But it's not completely bonkers like a V4, one of these, where you're talking 200 plus horsepower and it's completely wants to kill you all the time. But if you want something that's gonna get, you know, if you want something that's prettier, you want something that's a little more sporty, a little more exotic, a little less common. If you're going to bike night, people are gonna come over and check out the Ducati. And you say, oh, it's just ego, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. You know, those are all things that go into people's buying decisions. You know, is it mundane? Are they a dime a dozen? Does everybody have one like a Gixxer 750? Everybody's got one. There's nothing special about it. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. They all get the same freaking M4 pipe. There's really not, you know, it's just a really good bike. I mean, you can argue, well, there's a reason why everyone has one. Yeah, you're right. They're great bikes. And honestly, if a Gixxer 750 had modern electronics, ABS, auto blip, all that shit on it, I would have bought a Gixxer 750, thrown on a set of Healy bars, slip on an ECU flash, and just called it a day. But Suzuki don't want to modernize that bike, so here I am, 167 miles. We're going to do another quick loop just to get some miles on it. But that's my real initial impression so far. You know, better brakes, better handling, stock to stock, better suspension, better steering damper. It's way more exotic. It's way more character to look at. It's a much more beautiful bike. MT-10's ugly, just from a pure looks perspective. It's an ugly bike. But the MT-10 is a better buy. It's faster. Aftermarket support, maintenance is, you know, all that stuff, all that side of things, all favors the Yamaha, man. I got this not because it's the better bike or it's the faster bike. I got it because I wanted another Ducati. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know? There's some things you buy because it fits the bill and it's what you need. And then there's some things you buy that are what you want. I got a nice Tissot chronograph. It's like a $400 chronograph. It's not crazy expensive. I mean, $400 for a watch is not that much in the world of watches. doesn't tell time any better than a $30 Casio. But I wanted a Tissot. You know, I wanted Citizens. I want to get a Tog or a Longines or, you know, something that's an actual luxury watch. I'm still going to look at my wrist and it's going to tell me what time it is, just like a Timex or Casio, but sometimes you just want the Rolex. You just want something that's a little bit nicer. Maybe you want a Grand Seiko instead of the Rolex, because in the world of, you know, luxury watches, everyone goes for the Rolex. Everyone goes for the Breitling. So maybe you want something that's just a little different. Not everybody has. It becomes a conversation piece. It's something that people check out. It's not for the ego necessarily. I mean, a little bit. Let's be honest. But sometimes it's like, hey, it's a conversation starter. People are interested in it. People didn't come up and talk to me about my Trail Boss. People didn't come up and talk to me about my Mustang. Mustang, maybe I get a nod. They go, oh, it sounds good. I get people coming up all the time to sit there and have a conversation around that C8 Vet. You meet some nice people. You know, when you got something that's the same as everybody else's, what are you going to talk about? Hey, I like your car that's exactly like mine. All right, well, what else is there to say? You already know anything about it because you already have one, you know what I mean? So, if you're going to vote by spec sheets and your wallet, get the Yamaha. You will not be disappointed. The MT-10 is a freaking phenomenal bike. If you got a couple extra bucks to spend and you want to speak a little less with your wallet or spec sheet and a little bit more with, like, your heart, as they say, get the Ducati, get an Aprilia, get an MV Agusta, get something Italian. The Italians, I've been saying it for years, the Italians have a flair. It doesn't mean better. The Nissan GTR is a beautiful car. It's amazing the way it's manufactured. But when I look at it, it looks amazing until it's parked next to a McLaren or a Lambo. And then I'm like, looks like a Nissan. A really, really nice, fast Nissan, but it's a Nissan. Probably like half throttle here. So anyway, that's my critique of the two so far. I'm going to go ahead. I'm sure the wind's going to get pretty loud here, so I'm going to go ahead and shut down. But we'll give them more detailed stuff as I get this thing set up on the suspension and get the ECU unlocked for full power in the coming weeks. There's going to be a lot of content coming. I'm going to have to figure out a tail tidy. Might do exhaust and tuning at some point. There's going to be other mods. We'll go through this thing and pick it apart, and I'll do a more detailed analysis. Maybe I'll get this out on track this year. And then we can look at lap times and look at videos of me on track on the one bike versus this, and we'll get some more content. We'll answer some more questions, but that's my off-the-cuff, unscripted stream of consciousness comparison of the two bikes at this time. So we'll talk to y'all later.